You're listening to Why Germany podcast, the best place for relocation stories and expert tips, sponsored by RWTH Relocation Agency to Germany, with your host, Eden Levine.
My name is Eden Levine, and I'm here with Ilkin Kavi. Almost nailed it completely, but thank you so much for joining us to Why Germany podcast. I'm really happy to have you here. And today you're going to share your story of basically how you relocated to Germany. But as with everyone, I will start with you with why Germany?
Why Germany? Because the education was free. Yeah. I mean, not completely free, but almost free. Quite cheap.
Yeah.
So that was the deciding factor.
You came to study in Germany. How about you tell us the whole story, how you got into that?
So I studied my bachelor's in my home country, which is Turkey. I studied architecture, and I wanted to relocate to Northern Europe ever since I know myself, let's say. Why Germany? Like, the deciding factor, like I said, was the education costs here in Germany. Because in other Northern Europe countries, basically, if you have to be a European citizen, otherwise you pay ungodly amounts for education. And I think Germany made education free for everyone around 2016. I'm not sure. Mm-hmm. So I just decided to look into master's programs here for architecture, because you need to do a master's degree to get the architect title in Germany. You can work as an architect, but you cannot sign projects if you don't have a master's degree.
Right.
So, yeah, basically that's how it started. That was back in end of 2016 when we made a decision. When I say me, I say I'm talking about my parents, because they financed everything. Like I am very lucky on this sense, because my parents were willing to help me, and I basically didn't have any money to my name. I only had a car which I sold and came here and just spent that money for a year after that. But basically that was how it started in end of 2016 after I quit my job. I was very unhappy. So, and then we quickly found out we worked with some educational, support firms that help you get into the country, get into the universities, basically write your applications. What do you need? What do you need to send them? Because it can be really confusing, especially back in the day. This was in 2017. There wasn't many English written documentation. Right now, I'm pretty sure there are way more, like YouTube channels, there are Instagram accounts like yours. Mm-hmm. There are so many places that you can look up info from, but back in 2017 it wasn't that much. So basically we quickly find out that I had to have a C1 level German, because there's literally no program in Germany for architecture master's degree that is in English.
Yeah, well, everything that is free comes with some obligation, right? So
exactly. I think there are a couple possibilities right now. I am not sure. It's not directly architecture, but related subjects. So if you have a bachelor's degree in architecture, you can find a program that you can get into here in English, but they're hard to get in because they're in English. So they're on high demand.
Probably,
yeah. So in 2017, February, I started learning German. And for 1.5 years, that was just my whole life.
Oh.
Yeah, because C1 is a very hard level to achieve.
Mm-hmm. And that was in Germany already?
No, I studied until end of B1 in Turkey. Mm-hmm. And I went to Goethe Institute, which is probably the best everywhere. And then after B1, I relocated to Heidelberg to learn the language further, basically. And I stayed in Heidelberg from 2017 October till March 2018. It was a nice city, but that wasn't the total relocation. It was always going to be like 5-6 months. So I was aware of that.
Mm-hmm.
Still quite hard. That was the first time I lived by myself. It was a very interesting experience. And I had to come back to Turkey because, my language course was up and I just needed to pass my exam, which took me another 4 months.
Wow.
Yeah, it's really hard. It's really hard. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think on 2018 and in May 2018, I finally got a study offer from RWTH,
Mm-hmm.
which is in Aachen. In 2018 June, I finally passed my exam.
Mm-hmm.
So everything was on set.
Ready to go.
Ready to go. Finally, in 2018 September, I relocated to Aachen permanently. And right now I'm located in Düsseldorf. Almost a year ago, we moved here with my boyfriend.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that's the summary of this whole thing.
Wow, it brings out a lot of questions for me. So
Okay.
I want to start first with you mentioned, you were looking for like education that is on the cheap side or even for free when it comes to Germany. So like somewhere that you can feel more confident to study and, the pocket does not get empty very quickly. Can you tell me what is the difference between the cost of the cost of education in Turkey in general compared to Germany?
So in Turkey, it depends. If you go to a public university, it's free, basically. Mm-hmm. I think you need to pay some kind of taxes. I can't really remember what is it called in English. Mm-hmm. But I also studied in a private university in Turkey. And back in those days, between 2011 and 2015 is my bachelor's degree. I think every year we paid around 6,000 to 7,000 euros.
Oh, wow.
I cannot really remember the exchange rate back in those days, but right now it's ungodly amounts.
Now it's even more.
Right now, €1 is equal to 35 Turkish liras today, I think. But in 2011, it was like €1 was like 1.8 Turkish lira.
Wow.
So the inflation is really that's one of the reasons that I wanted to leave Turkey.
Okay, yeah. I was about to ask that. Like if there is a possibility of a cheaper education still existing in Turkey, then what were the reasons to leave?
Technically, probably, if I went to a private university, I would pay more or less the same amount with the...
In Germany, if you would go to a private...
In Germany, yes. Yeah. No. In Turkey, if I went to a private university for my master's degree, I think it would be more or less equivalent what we would pay in Germany for my living expenses, like having my own home, stuff like that. Because when I was in Turkey, I was living with my parents, which is quite normal in Turkey, living with your parents until mostly you're married, or if you're not relocating to a different city for university. In my case, my bachelor's, where I did my bachelor's degree was like 10 kilometers or 5 kilometers away from my parents' house. So it didn't make any sense to spend some extra money. But if I would study in Istanbul, I just wouldn't relocate. So I think if I wanted to study in Turkey, I think it would be the same, more or less the same amount with the private universities. But I actually tried to get into some master's program in Turkey, in some technical universities in Istanbul, like the best ones in Istanbul, because they were the only ones that has the program that I wanted. And they both rejected me in 2017. And I was like, you know what? Let's try my chance somewhere else.
Right.
And it ended up really way better than this, because when you look at the rankings of the universities, those two Turkish universities doesn't even rank in the first 500 in the world.
So you say it's a good decision
Yeah, it was a
general?
good decision.
Okay.
RWTH is like the top 100.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, RWTH is, I think, top 10 in Germany. It's a very, very good university. I really wasn't expecting them to accept me after my rejection from those other universities.
So it ended up
Yeah,
good.
ended up very good for me. But for me, the goal was to relocate, and education was a tool for that.
Right.
Because while you're in university, you can adapt, you can make mistakes, maybe you can have a part-time job, learn the ways how it works and everything. Because if you come directly for work, it is harder, I think. So that was for me a way to adapt and basically learn how to live here.
Right. Tell me about your decision on learning B1 in Turkey and then going to Germany for the rest. What made this decision happen?
That was a suggestion of our consulting firm,
Mm-hmm.
the consulting firm that did my applications and everything. They also helped with the language course.
Mm-hmm.
So
they helped finding it, or
they helped finding they helped finding the course. I think they had like some language courses that they had an agreement with that they would send their consulting students to them.
I see.
And I chose Heidelberg because I heard that Heidelberg is a beautiful city, which totally is. I totally would suggest everybody to go visit Heidelberg.
Mm-hmm.
It's a fairy tale city, seriously.
Wow. Okay, yeah, now I have to put it on my bucket list.
Seriously, you should. But it can be boring after a week, just so you know.
Well, only to visit, then, Ilkin says.
Only to visit, yes. Like a couple days is enough.
Right.
Yeah. But so B1, learning until B1 was because these people were like people who lived in Germany, like they're Turkish Germans.
Mm-hmm.
So they knew how these things work.
Right.
So they told us that learn until B1 here. That will save you money because here you live with your parents and it's cheaper to get the language course here. But after that, you need to get exposed to the language. And it's also not many people learn, like back in those days, probably these days, there are many courses that teach C1 in Turkey.
Mm-hmm.
But back in those days, they wouldn't even open like B2 or C1 courses in Goethe, very rarely.
Wow.
So that's why back to back, I was in like intensive course that's called 5 days a week or 4 days a week. I'm not sure in Goethe. But I was also getting private lessons to support myself.
Oh.
And we in the group that we were always the same group that going from A1 to A2, B1.
Right.
So we created study groups. The Goethe Institute in Istanbul was in a very touristic part of the city.
Mm-hmm.
And after the class, we would go to Starbucks and do our homeworks, for example. It was really nice. But after B1, after even A2, most people stopped coming.
Oh, okay.
Only couple stuck around. Mm-hmm. And some people did the same as me after B1. They also relocated to Germany, several cities, basically. And back in those days, I still can't believe I got my national visa in 2 weeks.
Oh.
I seriously cannot believe that happened.
How it was easy back then.
Yes, before COVID, it was way too easy.
Right. Wow. Yeah. And do you think it was a good decision when it comes to learning the language, partially first in Turkey and then going to Germany for the rest of it?
I think so, because I could already converse.
Mm-hmm.
I was a little bit unconfident with myself. I didn't have confidence with myself. But, sometimes in Heidelberg especially, people were so friendly. It's like, oh, you don't have to speak German, we can speak English if you like.
Wow.
most of them were like that. When I first arrived, I had my fair share of some unfriendly Germans, let's say, and mostly older people.
Mm.
Don't want to step anybody on anybody's toes, but yeah. Yeah, but people in Heidelberg were extremely friendly, and I kind of got discouraged by my teacher there. I didn't really like my teacher there. Yeah, basically,
But
like
it did succeed eventually.
Yeah, eventually, but I had to get a lot of support, like from outside, private lessons, etc. Like B2 is a very hard level.
Right.
It's a very grammar heavy level, and I still feel the lack of knowledge that came from that, because like I think we spent 3.5 weeks for B2, and that is very, very small. Like that is a very short time for B2, and B2, like I said, B2 is a very heavy level.
Right. So
yeah,
basically, you're saying the teacher was the problem, and I remember
the teacher was the problem.
I remember before coming to Germany, and when I was checking around, like I also moved in 2017, and I remember like really scrapping every information I could from every website and every Facebook group. The one thing that came up all the time was really that it doesn't really matter which school you're choosing or like which language course you're choosing, but rather sometimes you kind of fall on a bad teacher, and the teacher does everything. So it's like it can make or break your whole experience, and the school itself is not mostly what's matter, because they mostly use the same methods of teaching, same books, same material. And if the teacher is great, you're good and you're lucky, and you're probably going to learn the language well. While if he's bad or she is bad, I also heard of people like really being not only discouraged but feeling like really offended by their teacher. So really, I understand completely what you mean, and I'm happy that you kind of passed that and you still utilize the other sources to still get you to the whole point of why you came to Germany, which is to study eventually.
Yes.
And I come back for a second to what you mentioned about this this company that helped you with the whole process. And when we spoke before, you said that it is really hard, especially for Turkish people, to come to Germany, because that you're used to having those services that can do things for you.
Exactly.
But in Germany, you have to do everything DIY. So it seems like this is kind of an example of what you meant. And can you elaborate on like what is it now that you feel that's missing and what you would like to have as a service for you, for example?
I mean, I really would like to call somebody in and drill like some holes on my walls and hang stuff for me. That's the main point, because I am a little bit sick of like trying to do everything myself, which I mostly can. I was able to before too, but manual labor in Turkey is very cheap. And opposite to here, it's very expensive. Like people here build their own kitchens, which was like shocking to me. I was like, how does an apartment come without a kitchen? Like, how does that work? Like, I couldn't fathom that. Thankfully, we never had to build a kitchen.
Okay, that's a good thing at least.
Are you considering relocation to Germany? Visit us now at www.overtheoffic.com and schedule a call with us right now.
The sole company that helped me out, I think that was a must in my time. Right now, I see most of my friends, like let's say acquaintances from Turkey, they do it themselves. They can reach to a lot of sources and everything, but back in my day, like we didn't know anything. The more you look into it, the more confused you get. So I mean, this company was not cheap by any means, by the way. but thankfully we're privileged enough that we could pay for it.
Right.
If it happened today, probably my parents wouldn't be able to pay for it because inflation.
Yeah, I can imagine. But it was still very useful to have someone who already knows the process, and it saves you a lot of time, a lot of effort. And
they set up my bank account here. They set up the language course. They sent all of my applications. They also took care of my accreditation of my degree, which was already accredited, but we had to
recognition.
Do something.
It's called
Recognition.
Right.
My university was already in Bologna process, so it was already recognized degree here. But still, you need to convert my grades to German grades, and I to this day have no idea what they did, but they did everything. And for me, it was very useful, so I could just focus on learning German in that process.
Right.
I didn't have to worry about anything else.
Right. I think it's a general process of relocation for everybody, that there's so many stress, emotions and anxiety and fear and overwhelming emotions that come with it, that you're just sometimes want somebody to take care of everything for you, and it helps tremendously, I think, for so many people. I wanted to ask you, because different countries have different feelings towards people searching for relocation in other countries, and especially when you have a close family and close friend circle. How's it perceived in Turkey or in your family, the fact of people or you in particular relocating to Germany or maybe other countries?
In my family, especially on my father's side, for those who don't know, Turkish families are very close knit. We are very we know our cousins. Like I don't know how many degrees away cousins are. We know each other.
Big families as well, right?
Big families, yes, exactly. So if we have a wedding, there would be at least 200, 300 people, Yeah.
Nothing that German families can grasp.
No, I've been to a couple of German weddings, and the most I've seen was 50 people, and that was a big German wedding. Basically, from my father's side, there is a lot of people who immigrated to Germany back in the 60s, 70s, 80s. So I already have some family here, even close by in Düsseldorf, in Köln. I have some second-degree cousins. My father's cousins' kids are here. They were born here, and they actually helped me out a lot on my first, not first, but the second relocation to Aachen.
Right.
Because they were in close by. So, but that wasn't really a deciding factor, and my family doesn't really perceive it as a bad thing. But I'm also not so much in communication with them. But my father's family are already immigrated to other countries a lot, so it's not perceived weirdly.
Okay.
And my mother's side, we are not that close, to be honest. It's just the close family that is oh, we miss you, come back, visit, especially when my grandparents were alive, they would be oh, we miss you, come visit us, stuff like that. I only have one grandparent left, but I try to see him as much as possible when I go to Turkey, which I used to go way more before COVID, but
Yeah.
So it wasn't negative at all, It's all, and ever since about
they did support you to do this decision.
Yes.
So it's
one thing that my father told me, which I mentioned in our earlier phone call with you. My father always told me, quotes, "You need to learn at least one foreign language as good as your mother language, because one day you might have to leave this country."
Wow.
This is something he told me as early as I remember. I was 10.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Because he tried to flee himself
back
in 1995, I think. They couldn't do it. They wanted to go to USA. My uncle is in USA. From my father's side, he lives there. He still lives there. He has kids there and everything. They were going to go and live with him for a while, to get some support. But they couldn't manage. So
yeah.
yeah.
Wow. So I know you mentioned like there's a giant Turkish community in Germany, and it came to my, like, I now really remember that I've seen also in Leipzig there's so many Turkish restaurants and like Turkish people who are already have their life here, they have their children here, and like and it came to my knowledge that there is like a big community that came to Germany in the, like you said, like 60s, 70s, 80s, and like there was a huge wave of Turkish people coming to Germany. And this is why now döner is everywhere. So
and really, let me tell you, that
food.
that döner has nothing to do with the Turkish döner that we eat in Turkey.
I was thinking exactly the same, like, and especially, and I mean, we in Israel, we have shawarma, which is also somewhat similar. And when I come to those doner places and they say, yeah, we have a garlic sauce and like curry sauce, I was like, how is it connected to anything? But this is a Germanized doner. Basically.
Definitely. Yeah, it is a very Germanized doner. Like in Turkey, if you make like a dürüm or like a sandwich or something, they would put barely anything in there except the meat. Like the meat should be the main taste that you're getting there. Otherwise, if you put too many like sauces, like salad, stuff like that, then you cannot taste the meat. Like that is the whole point of doner.
Okay, now you've learned something new. If you're asking for doner, tell them to have double the meat, half the sauces and salads, if you want it to be like really Turkish doner.
Yeah.
Right, and I wanted to talk about something that to me is always very interesting, because you mentioned that you have a boyfriend.
Yes.
And we spoke before and you said your boyfriend is German.
Yes.
Tell me about this, because it's like really completely different mentalities.
Yes, it is.
and how long are you together?
Shortly, we just celebrated our 5th year.
5th? Okay, wow.
Yeah, on 30th of March.
Wow. So it's really early on when you came to Germany. You met him.
Yeah, it is. Like I met him on 2019 on my flatmate's birthday party. Yeah.
You hear that, how you get to know Germans, and especially if you're looking for a partner, go to parties.
Quite a side note on that one. If you want to meet Germans, you need to do some social activities. Germans do not find friends from work or, I don't know, like from neighbors or something. From social activities, like I used to do pole dancing, for example, and I met so many people from there. Most of my friends in Aachen was from pole dancing, not from school, not from work, mostly from pole dancing.
Like find a hobby and do it with other Germans.
Exactly. Yeah, that is the way to make German friends.
Yes.
Back into the German boyfriend part. it's like Uyan in in Instagram, the Vietnamese girl.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, the German boyfriend.
The German boyfriend, right?
Yeah. He would kill me if I don't say this. He is actually Brazilian because he was born in Brazil. But came to Germany when he was, I don't know, in the elementary school times.
So he got enough time to Germanize himself completely.
Yes. His father is German, his mother is Brazilian, and they immigrated back to Germany when he was little. So I would say he still has some like Brazilian traits, but I would say he's mostly German. And when you see him, you're like, how is he Brazilian? He's German.
Okay. Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah, I mean, he's a typical German. We met on my flatmates' birthday party. Like I said, they were in the same fraternity. There are fraternities, sororities in Germany, which is very different than the American sense here.
I can imagine.
Yeah, it is very different. It feels
same amount of beer, probably.
more. They even have a system of like who drank how much beer on that month, so they can pay accordingly, and it's a very cheap beer there.
Of course.
Yeah, in their house.
Students, really.
It's really fun. My boyfriend wasn't a student; he was already working. He became a part of this fraternity by just renting a room from there. When he was working, he already was finished with his studies, but yeah, he was basically a part of the fraternity. So that's how we met. Back in those days, I wasn't drinking alcohol much, and everybody was like getting, wasted in the birthday party. And he was like, "Why aren't you drinking?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm on this diet that I want to lose weight." I was very sick of my body weight issues. It's not that just how I look, it's more like my I have some health issues related to my weight, even though I'm not very much overweight. So I was being really careful. I basically had like one cup of wine and went through the whole night with that. And we talked about how I relocated from Turkey to Germany and how I've been doing so far. And I guess he was a little bit impressed by that. I don't know. And, yeah.
It's impressive.
Yeah, and it wasn't a very good time in my life, to be honest. I had another boyfriend before him, and he dumped me in a very shitty way. And it was a very bad time of my life at that point. I was getting better, but it wasn't a very good time. And I was like, that was the time that I thought, you know what, I'm going to stay single for a while. And then I met him.
We plan stuff, and then the world is laughing, is kind of situation.
So he walked me home that night, and then he asked me out on a date a couple days later, I think. And we started dating. End of March in 2019. We had our ups and downs, of course. Like he has a very different personality than mine. Both culturally and like personally, we're very different. But we somehow find some ways to do stuff together. We have some interest in, like, we're both kind of geeks. He's a huge nerd, and I think it's because me having a huge hard-on for nerds. I don't know if I can say this in a podcast, but yeah. Right now, for example, he's on a card tournament in Belgium somewhere.
Okay.
Yeah, he's that kind of
hardcore
nerd. Hardcore nerd, and I love it.
Perfect. Perfect match.
Yeah.
And do you think there are advantages into your different mentalities, or maybe disadvantages?
For me, I was a little bit sick of my culture, like Turkish culture men, a little bit, because from my short experience before him, but dating German men, they are so goddamn respectful.
Wow.
Towards your boundaries. They wouldn't even hold your hand without specifically getting your permission for it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and physical intimacy and everything. They make sure that you're okay with it.
Wow.
And that was something that I really found. Maybe it's not for everybody, but for me it was
consent, you mean?
Yeah, not consent, but more outgoing maybe. Because it's even like, I think our first kiss, even like I leaned in for it.
Yeah.
And most girls were like, oh, I wouldn't do that, stuff like that. But
I did it.
Yeah.
You go, girl.
There you go. Yeah. So basically, that's something I really liked about German men, opposed to my own culture, which you keep saying no. No. And they think that as in, like, I'm playing hard to get.
I see. Yeah.
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 And that is not something that uncommon, I think. Not just in my country. I hear a lot of women from US living the same situation, and also some other Middle Eastern countries. I'm not sure about like Asia, but I think this is not a uncommon issue.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's something I really found attractive about German men.
So you heard it, women of the world. If you're looking for respectful men, you might think about Germany as the place to look for.
Yeah.
All right.
But sorry, one side note. Be careful. They might be really like distant. You might feel that they are very distant, but that's just how they are.
So you might feel like they are not even trying to attract you, and they're even really like distant. But it's not that. It's just their personality.
Yes,
it's just like
it is. It takes time to get into German people's heart.
True. That's very true. But when you get there, wow.
Yes.
A whole new world.
Yeah.
All right, Ilkin, I have one question left for you, which is if you have one tip to share with people who want to come to Germany, what would that be?
It's kind of up to which country you're coming from, but especially if you're from like a Southern or Asian culture, be ready for that. Germans are very individual, and they do not have like a community culture here. You might feel a little bit lonely when you first come here, and be ready for that. I think it is the hardest thing that you can get through here, and I think that is why most people give up and go back, because it is a very hard thing to deal with. So work on your support system before you come. Maybe try to make some friends online. I thankfully had a friend, but she was in Hamburg, so that would be my tip. Be ready for the hardship. It's not going to be all, because when you're coming out from like, I don't know, economic problems, like you're trying to look for a better life. That's why you're mostly relocating to Germany. But it is not going to be easy.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the process, all in all, it's hard by itself. And not having a community, not having the people that you can lean on, even cry on their shoulders just because something happened, can be the major factor into why you would consider the relocation as unsuccessful. So I agree with you, Ilkin, that maybe relying first solely on German community as a community might not be the right decision. It's not to say you're not going to find any German friends or even partners. It's just that it could be that it will take longer than
but thankfully right now there are so many communities on Facebook, like expats in Germany is one of them, for example, or there are like a lot of Instagram accounts that give you tips, tricks, so many things that you can find now. Like even if you don't find somebody right next to you, but you can find somebody online to at least talk.
Yeah.
You know, this is so goddamn hard. Why are they making everything so hard? You just want to vent, and there's nobody to vent to. So it becomes really frustrating.
Of course. Just like you mentioned, online platforms, also RWTH has Discord server, and it's also divided by cities. So you can find people in your city that you can vent to because you need that, or just to have friends or even tandem partners, because as we established, learning German can be difficult.
Yeah, exactly.
So Ilkin, I want to really, really thank you for coming to this podcast, sharing your story, sharing your amazing tips and, stories that people can then connect to and understand a bit better how to approach relocation to Germany. I think it's amazing. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
We hope you enjoyed listening to this episode of Why Germany. If you want to learn more about relocation, make sure to visit RWTH.com, your relocation experts.